Hey guys, this is Carrie, and in this video we're going to be continuing to work on our AP Explore task. So in order to get set up for today's video, you're going to want to have your AP Explore task written document open, where you work to refine your topics. You're also going to want to have your AP Explore task computational artifact open, which is your collage that you've created digitally using Google Drive's Slides feature. If you go back to your AP Explore task, you have two important links here, so you can click on those and then click to open them by clicking the link. And I've got both of those open as well. So our goal for today is going to be to start working on some of these written questions. So skipping down past the part that we figured out, part 1, we get to part 2, our computational artifact. Now I think just for the sake of making things easy to open here, it pays to add a link to our computational artifact to this document. This is just for us, and I think it'll be something that makes things a lot easier. So I'm going to link that in by creating a couple of enters here, and then write computational artifact, and mine's bolded, so I'm going to do Command B to unbold it, computational artifact. And to add a hyperlink, what you can do is you can highlight that, and then you can click, let's see if I can make this a bit larger, yeah, you can click this little insert link button, and then the link that we're going to insert here is going to be this link right here. And now, it should make it easier for us to get to our AP Explore task example in the future, where we don't have to search for two different documents. This document will be like the home base for everything. All right, so we actually are done with parts 1 and part 2. We've got to continue on to part 3 now. So part 3 is the questions for the AP exam. And today we're going to be tackling questions 2A and 2B, along with part of question 2E. All right, so let me explain. Similar to our AP Create task, there's a set of written questions. We're going to only work on a couple of them today. For question 2A and 2B, we can read those questions on the example one here. They've got the same question text that you've got in your Google Doc. In addition, we can look through some example responses from the College Board for what would get full credit for these responses. And then we can actually go to the rubric and we can assess whether we've actually done enough to get the full credit answers. Now the one question that's a little bit unusual here is question 2E. So question 2E is going to be a list of references. So if you've ever written a research paper before, that's like you have to actually do research, right? And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be listing our sources that we used for research. And today I'm going to be using Zoom's website for my resource. So I'll outline how you do that in a second. All right. So let's get to answering these questions. All right, so question 2A, provide information on your computing innovation. So for me, that's Zoom. And computational artifact. So remember, computational artifact, that's really the collage. All right, name the computing innovation that is represented by your computational artifact. Okay, so that's easy enough to do. So the computational innovation, or the computing innovation, let me use the vocabulary that they're giving, computing innovation. The computing innovation that I have chosen to research is the Zoom video conferencing app. Describe the computing innovation's intended purpose and function. So here it's really important to draw a distinction. When we make something with a computing program, there are at least two sides of it, right? There's an intended purpose, an intended function that the developer has, and then there's the effects that that innovation has on the world. And it's really important that we draw this distinction here, because in the rubric, the one note that they have regarding question 2A is you will not get a point if you identify an effect. So an effect is something that we're going to be talking about later on, tomorrow, or next time we have this class. What we're trying to do is we're trying to state the intended purpose or function. So in my case, the easiest way I could find the intended purpose or function is Zoom is a private company. So I just Googled Zoom mission statement or Zoom purpose. And I quickly found on Zoom's page, they have a vision statement. So looking at that vision statement, this is the research component of it, right? And then I'm going to need to summarize this in my document here. So it says that Zoom is the leader in modern enterprise video communications. With an easy, reliable cloud platform for video and audio conferencing, collaboration, chat, and webinars across mobile devices, desktops, telephones, and room systems. Zoom Rooms is the original software-based conference room solution used around the world in board, conference, huddle, and training rooms, as well as executive offices and classrooms. Founded in 2011, Zoom helps businesses and organizations bring their teams together in a frictionless environment to get more done. Zoom is a publicly traded company on NASDAQ and headquartered in San Jose, California. All right, so how do I take this and I turn it into a response here? So the intended purpose of Zoom, of the Zoom video, or of Zoom, I'll just say, is now looking here, they've also got these mission statements here about our mission, our vision, our values, and our culture. I might actually go with the our mission one. The intended purpose of Zoom is according to, well, let's rewrite the statement. According to the company's mission statement, the intended purpose of Zoom is our mission, make video communications frictionless. So next up, I've taken a direct quote here, and even if you don't take a direct quote, this is actually really important when it comes to stating our references. One of the things that we need to include for our references are in-text citations. So if you quote something in a research paper, you have to say where you quoted it from. So for question 2E, we're going to need to have references through in-text citation, at least 3 different sources. All right, so I'm going to put an in-text citation here, and it says in-text citations may be provided in any way that acknowledges the source, according to or as written in the New York Times, parenthetical, footnotes, etc. So for an example of how to do this, I'm going to look at their example here. So it looks like what they've done is they've parenthetically put in parentheses here whenever they cite a source. So here this is source 3, which when we go to their references list for 2E, we can see that source 3 is this dangers of giving in to virtual reality post. All right, so I'm going to cite this. This is going to be my first source. So I will put in parentheses here a 1. And then down here in my references, I'm going to make sure to include the Zoom website as source 1. All right, so let's see. How do they do this? Okay, so they put the website where they got it from, the author of the website, the title of the website, the source, and the date viewed, as well as the date posted. All right, so let's see how much of this we can get from here. All right, so for each source, include the permanent URL. All right, so here's the permanent URL. All right, let's see. Do we have a author, title, source for the date you retrieved the source? Or sorry, the author. Let's see if we have an author for this. There's not really an author because this is just the Zoom mission statement here. So I'm going to put Zoom Video Communications as the author. Next up, let's see, the title would be About Zoom. Let's see if they've marked their title any different. Oh, they put it in quotes, so let's put our title in quotes. Just matching the example here. All right, source Intel. I don't even really know what they mean by source here, other than that it's just like, I guess the source would be like Zoom itself. So maybe like if for author we didn't have Zoom Video Communications here, we had the specific author, we don't have information there, we would put Zoom Video Communications for this part. So I'm just going to mark source as the same thing. And then I'll put like homepage. And next up, we've got the date viewed. So the date viewed would be today's date, which is, let's see, on my phone, 5/13/2020. All right? And lastly, we're supposed to put the date that it was written, but I don't have that information here, so I'm going to leave that part blank, and that's okay. They've done that here for a couple of them. All right, let's see. So the competing innovation that I've chosen to research is the Zoom video conferencing application. According to the company's mission statement, the intended purpose of Zoom is our mission, make video communications frictionless. Zoom's goal is to create a digital model for collaboration and conferencing in a way such that this communication is seamless. This is becoming especially important in the modern age, where companies and individuals need to communicate and meet over long distances. Okay, and then lastly here, describe how your computational artifact illustrates, represents, or explains the computing innovation's intended purpose, its function, or its effect. All right, so if we go here, we can look at our computational, or at our explore task. One thing I actually am thinking here is, this is actually not a direct quote from the website, but the reason that I know this is from the website, so you can cite this as well to being from one, because Zoom's website explained this much as well. So even though it's not a direct quote, you still cite it to the website. All right, so we've cited both of these, the purposes, and next up we're going to explain how we illustrated it. So the artifact illustrates what Zoom meeting rooms look like on a variety of platforms. Including computer, phone, computer and smartphone. It also illustrates a couple of the modern effects of Zoom, such as Zoom bombing and the increased popularity of Zoom due to the coronavirus, or due to COVID-19 making remote conferencing more essential. All right, so that's going to be the end of, and I don't have to cite this last one because this is not coming from another source. This is coming from the work that I've done here with the computational artifact. All right, so yours is going to look different here, right? If you're doing a game, it might be something like the purposes, devices, or the innovation is to have fun, like it's just a game. Or maybe you're doing something that's got a more intrinsic purpose to it, or more broad purpose, and you can find sources for that. If you can't find the company website, you can look up other articles on here. So you can look up like, I don't know, whatever your thing is, like Zoom purpose, New York Times, or Zoom purpose, or like if you're doing like a video game, maybe like, I don't know what a video game like news sources, Wired maybe, like I don't actually know, but like Wired magazine, purpose, whatever video game you're playing, and try to figure out what the purpose is from an external source, and that way you can mark it so that has a reference. All right, describe your development process, explicitly identifying the computing tools and techniques you use to create your artifact. Your description must be detailed enough so that a person unfamiliar with these tools and techniques will understand your process. All right, so here we're talking about the artifact, and whenever you see artifact, you want to think off to the side. What they're actually saying here is the collage. So you don't have to add these comments. These are just me annotating for the video here. All right, so how did I make this collage? All right, and I'm going to use the vocabulary from the question to make the computational artifact. I used, what do they call this? Google Slides. I used Google Slides through the Google Drive platform. And you shouldn't write the same thing, right? This should be in your own words, even though we had a similar process. Please don't plagiarize this, otherwise you won't get credit for the work that you've done. You'll probably get a 0 on the whole thing if you copy this question. So please put this in your own words. I started with a simple blank side template. I added and centered a title to clearly explain my choice, to clearly, not explain, to clearly indicate my choice of computing innovation. Just using the vocabulary from their question. All right, to add pictures, I searched online for a variety of topics. I'm going to add some more detail. I searched on Google Images for a variety of topics related to Zoom. And upon finding images I was interested in using, dragged them from one tab of Google Chrome to the tab where I was working on the computational artifact. I resized and laid out the images. Finally, to submit the document, I downloaded the file as a PDF so that it was in the correct format. All right, so I apologize for any grammar mistakes that I've got in my answers to these two questions. Let's compare these answers that we wrote here to the answers in the example and the rubric as a final step. So this is going to be the last part of today's lesson, is to make sure that we actually fulfilled the goals of these questions. So the example one, this is really helpful for me to get a feel for exactly what I'm supposed to be doing here. The example one, remember, that was virtual reality. So here's what they wrote. The computing innovation that is represented by my computational artifact is that of virtual reality. All right. Virtual reality is using technology to create a reality outside of the real world by fooling your brain to think you are in a different environment. The artifact attached with this starts by going through the basic functions that allow VR to work, with the headset and CPU working together to seamlessly stream this information back and forth. The bottom part goes more into the stats associated with VR, and that is a growing industry for young people and seems to be on the move to grow even more. All right, the computing innovation that I have chosen to research is the Zoom video conferencing application. According to the company's mission statement, the intended purpose of Zoom is before I read this, sorry, I should be checking the rubric as well. All right, so for 2A, the only point that we get here is it states a fact that about the correctly identified computing innovation's intended purpose or function. Do I state a fact about it? Yes. I state a fact because I state the mission statement, which is the intended purpose of the device. Well, am I going to lose a point? Okay, the innovation is not a computing innovation. Zoom is certainly a computing innovation, and the written statement gives an effect. Well, it doesn't give an effect. I specifically gave a purpose, which was the mission statement, and that was that difference that we talked about, purpose versus effects. So I've got the full point for 2A. Now 2B is weird. 2B is related to the row 1 computational artifact. It doesn't have its own row here, so there's not too much detail about 2B. But if we compare our answer to the example answer here, for 2B it says, I used a website called Pictochart to create my artifact. So what I did is I split up the infographic area into separate blocks to contain the graphics on how VR works and the other blocks on stats associated with it. I then chose pictures off the internet that fit the background with a VR headset and computing tower so that I could simulate the stream of data in between and how the system works as a whole and show that it is a cycle. I then added all of my text to explain this along with the arrows that were in the graphics area to show the cycle that the data takes. I found some graphs that showed huge popularity and projected popularity and added those in with an explanation to show how big VR is becoming. All right, I think ours is comparable. We didn't use Pictochart. We used Google Slides in a very similar way. To make the computational artifact, I used Google Slides through the Google Drive platform. I started with a simple blank slide template. I added and centered a title to clearly indicate the choice of computing innovation. Let me just add Zoom here so that I'm being explicit about it again. To add pictures, I searched on Google Images. for a variety of topics related to Zoom, and upon finding images I was interested in using, dragged them from one tab to Google Chrome, one tab of Google Chrome to the tab where I was working on the computational artifact. I resized and laid out the images. Finally, to submit the document, I downloaded the file as a PDF so that it was in the correct format. All right, cool. I think we've got it. So we're going to continue with questions 2C and 2D in the, oh wow, oh yeah, 2C and 2D next time we have class. These are a little more sophisticated, and we'll continue working on our references. You should have at least one reference now from your question 1 answer, and you should make sure to have some in-text citations. All right, guys, I hope you found this helpful, and please get 2A and 2B done, and then mark the assignment complete on your Google Classroom. Remember, your AP exam is due in less than 2 weeks on the 26th, which is a Tuesday, so 13 days away. The whole thing is due, so create task and explore task. All right, talk to you guys soon. Bye.